Will Biden ever declassify the JFK documents? Let's ask the man who made the movie. Hello there, you 6.5 million awakening wonders. Thanks for joining me on this great voyage to truth and freedom, in which we must commune with truth tellers like the great Oliver Stone, whose new film, Nuclear Now, is out now. There's a link down there in the description. I asked Oliver Stone about JFK. Do we have more access to the truth now? And are we being told the truth about Putin? Is he a reasonable man, or is he a nut job, tyrant, war criminal, or is it a bit of both? Stay to the end of this conversation. You're going to love it.
We're taking Russia to the edge now. We are really going to the edge. This is crazy what's going on, and nuts. It's suicidal. We are going to hurt ourselves in a big way. This is a potential World War III. This is the same situation as World War I in a sense. The stupidity of it because of the alliances and the fears and the built-up phobias. If we don't stop this, what Biden is doing, this guy is, I voted for him. I made a mistake. I'm thinking that he was an old man now, that he would calm down, he'd be more mellow and so forth. I didn't see that at all. I see a man who maybe is not in charge of his own administration, who knows, but he's going to fall down somewhere. But it seems that he's dragging us stupidly into a confrontation with a power that's not going to give. This is their borders. This is their world. This is NATO going into Ukraine. This is a whole other story. This is not as bad as we did. We did a lot of terrible things from the 2001 on. We NATOized a lot of these countries in Eastern Europe who are anti-Russian because of old hostilities. And, you get dragged into Balkan wars here. This is really the same thing as World War I. Our allies are rabid anti-Russian people, the Ukrainian government. And who are they fighting? They're fighting ethnic Russians in Ukraine. This is the madness of it. And our media does not recognize that the ethnic Russians in Ukraine are really the ones who want their autonomy. That's all they asked for in 2014, autonomy. And they were about to get it. There was a deal about to be made with Putin and Ukraine right in March of 2022 when the war started. There was a deal about to be made. The America squelched it. They didn't want the deal. They don't want the peace treaty. They don't want to give autonomy to Donbass and Lugansk. Now, look where we are. It's gotten worse, and it's going to get worse.
Yes, there is an inability to address the complexity of the conditions that led to this, the ongoing infringement of former Soviet territories, as you have said and as you have documented, the sponsorship of the coup in 2014 and the unwillingness to acknowledge atrocities within Ukraine, or at least complexities of an ethnic nature within Ukraine, within those regions. And indeed, an inability to hold complex stories is perhaps one of the great determinants of our time, and it's something that you've never shied away from trying to do, whether that's with your fictionalized and scripted movies or with your documentaries. I'd like to ask you a little bit now about your film Snowden, which was you were unable to make through the studio system, perhaps because he is such a critical figure in modern America, a pivotal figure when it comes to understanding the nature of power within the era of big tech, who has exposed the degree to which there has been a globalized exploitation of data, globalized surveillance, ongoing lies around war. His story is, of course, connected to the incarceration without trial of Julian Assange, imprisoned in my country now, potentially awaiting extradition. I wonder if you feel that it's going to be increasingly difficult to tell these stories, whether it's your current movie, Nuclear Now, or whether or not if you were an emergent filmmaker, that you would have been able to make a movie like JFK. I know you were established, but would you have been able to tell stories like Platoon or JFK, let alone Snowden? And do you think increasingly we'll see films like Sound of Freedom that have alternative economic and indeed PR models that independent media now can viably promote movies, bypassing the conventional centralized media structures, and that there are indeed audiences for content that perhaps the mainstream media would prefer people didn't see?
As naked as day, everything you say has been so apparent. What did Snowden do? What did Snowden really do? He gave us information that the public has the right to know that their government is eavesdropping on the world as well as on them. That's all he did. And that's big news. And that was what was worth the film making. It was making the film is worth it. It was worth it no matter what happened. And I did pay a price for it because, frankly, I couldn't get distribution. I couldn't get financing out of the United States. I had to do it out of Germany and France. They gave me the most. And then eventually a small American distributor jumped in and gave me the finishing money. However, gave us the finishing money. However, it was badly distributed, poorly distributed. And the film was condemned in some quarters, but really appreciated. It's a good film. It's nothing, I'm very proud of it, but it didn't make the impact because people are scared of this issue. Are we really a bad guy? That's what people think. I think, is the United States really doing this? It's hard to believe some of the things we show in that movie, where the eavesdropping is going on everywhere. Everywhere we go, from Brazil to Europe to Asia, we show the degree of intervention the United States does, which is a hegemon, basically listening to everybody, including Germany, including Brazil. Remember the Brazilian president? It's what we do on a daily basis with cyber warfare and with eavesdropping is shocking. And at the same time, we make these accusations against China and against Russia, but they're a pale imitation of what we have done. We have set up a worldwide network of surveillance, bar none, with the most financed and the most sophisticated equipment. All this has changed, Russell. In my lifetime, I was 50 years old when the 2001 happened. I have to say, it changed. A mentality set in that, they went after us. They went after whoever they is. They went after us. They have to pay. It's us against them, us against them. And that mentality set in with this idiot, our worst president, George Bush, with no comparison to anybody else. George Bush Jr. became the guy who said, we have to fight the world if necessary. Global war on terror, it was called, but many people describe it as the global war of terror. And it hasn't stopped since 2001.
Mainstream media spaces have become deeply anodyne and highly controlled environments, and I don't think can contain voices like yours anymore. In fact, almost by definition, it's only permissible to have information that is not threatening. And this is a quality and phenomena that has increased even in the time that I've been working in media. That's why I think the emergence of populist figures, whether that's Donald Trump, who our audience are very keen on, and whom I can certainly see the sort of pedagogical powers of, there's no doubt about that, and and voices like RFK. This is, I think, important that there's a new type of populism emerging, and I think if there's to be any hope, and I haven't seen your film Nuclear Now yet, but I will, because I trust you and I see you as an educator as well as a creator, so I'll watch it, even though there's people in our chat that are still asking questions about nuclear waste, although you did, Oliver did touch on the sort of the ability to sensibly curtail and contain the propensity for uranium contamination elsewhere. But what I will say is that there is no chance of popularizing difficult ideas at a time when the mainstream media is such a heavily curated space. But I would also invite you again to comment on the possibility that new media models are emerging. Even your film, your films, I'm sure, are funded now in ways that would have been unthinkable 20, 30 years ago. And with the phenomena of Sound of Freedom, which has been sort of crowd-funded and is like #2 in the box office now, it seems, and even the candidacy of RFK, and perhaps you could even look at the Trump presidency, where it was a social media presidency, where, as people said at the time, there was governance through Twitter, until, of course, he was kicked off of there. Do you think that these new models of funding and promotion mean that stories like Nuclear Now can be told? And do you think that it's going to require a different type of politician to advance ideas that are outside of the mainstream, Oliver?
I don't know about different. I mean, I would rather see evolution than revolution. I believe in that. So there's no possibility. I always believe in evolution in terms of a person with policies that are ignorant learns from them and opens his mind, like Reagan. Look what Reagan did once he opened up to Gorbachev in Russia. He opened his mind, and he saw his wife maybe played a role in it, or maybe his astrologer, I don't know, but he saw a different way, and that was crucial. Same thing happens with people all around the world. Do you remember the world before 1989? All of a sudden, the Berlin Wall came down, and there was a new let go, a relief in the world. Something happened. You could feel it in the air, a springtime. And that existed for 10 years almost. So I always believe that change is possible from within. I believe that's the best way to do it, because revolution is very painful and a lot of people get hurt, and it's not fair to ever. I mean, it destroys the whole structure. I do believe we can evolve the structure. So I may be different in that respect than you are. I want to just say the film is, I know you have to close out. The Biden stuffed the JFK Act. The JFK Act was passed as a result of my film in 1992 by Congress. That was an act to let the American people see these classified files. That was obeyed, so to speak, in a very halting way for years, and things were released. Trump, of course, backed off on the last pages, which I don't know what they're about. They could be very much about the CIA, I hope. Because the CIA, those people who work there are the key to understanding those agents that were in place back when. We'd like to know more about them. But that act was stuffed the other day on Friday night, before the July 4th weekend, make sure that nobody paying attention. It was stuffed by Joe Biden, who was very disappointing. He just said no more declassification except by the CIA has to be involved in all that stuff. He raised he destroyed the essence of that action by Congress. He broke the law without knowing it. But essentially, breaking the law is commonplace these days. Whenever a government official doesn't like something we're doing, he breaks the law, including going to Iraq or whatever, sending weapons parallel, bar none, to Ukraine is an act of war, and we don't even admit it. We don't even act like we admit it.
Thanks very much for watching this. If you enjoyed this conversation, have a look at either of these. Turn on the notification bell and subscribe. Remember, we're on Rumble every day, and you can watch these conversations in full over there. More important than any of that is that you please, if you can, stay free.